Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever applies to you. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Julia. I'm a contemporary singing specialist based in Australia, and today I am reacting to Iron Maiden for the very first time. You guys have long requested that I check out Iron Maiden as a group, but also this particular song, Hallowed Be Thy Name. So without further ado, let's get into it.
I'm waiting in my cold cell when the bell begins to chime, reflecting on my past life, and it doesn't have much time. 'Cause at 5 o'clock they take me to the gallows. Yeah. The sands of time for me are running
Okay. So, very different energy to where we started in the beginning. The first thing that leapt out at me when I heard him sing, and I believe the lead singer for Iron Maiden is Bruce Dickinson. The first thing that I noticed listening to him was the richness of some of the vocal colors he's producing, as well as his vibrato. There was a beautiful sustain note. If we go back and find it, there was a gorgeous sustain note where his vibrato, for the most part, was very, very even. And then at the same time, we still had this there was a richness to his vocal quality and a little bit of darkness as well in his sound. And the only reason I'm bringing up tone right now is because already within the small section of the song that we've listened to, there's a tonal contrast in what he's doing vocally. And that requires you to do slightly different things within your pharynx, within your larynx height, within your placement. So it's this fantastic sustained sound with a pretty damn even vibrato throughout here.
the sands of time for me are running
So great sustain. He's on this O vowel, and that vibrato is really even through there. You can hear that like slightly darker quality that is in his sound. Part of that is because of the vowel choice. The other part is because his larynx is fairly relaxed in this particular part of the song, and it was pretty relaxed throughout this intro. Having that slightly relaxed larynx mean that it may sit a little bit lower, giving you a little bit more pharyngeal depth. And the lower and wider your pharynx is, the more those qualities are going to show up in your vocal timbre as well. And in contrast, jumping forward to this section just here, uh, we get a different tonal sort of spectrum that Spring showed. He's much brighter, a little bit more metallic. The sound both sounds, but it'll also be feeling like it's sitting a lot forward, more in the teeth. Little bit of nasality. There's almost like a bite to it as it's sitting forward.
To the rain with the loud shrieks, take the love from the bad to the last stage, from a world that is gone for it right.
So right there, we've lost that sort of low, wide quality, that slightly darker tone that we had in the beginning. The larynx is slightly higher. He's relying a lot on that bright, almost bite to his articulation through here.
And the made of the assumption of air, and the stuff that's surmounting terror, the threat in the end and some so many days of it that I'm dreaming, not easy to stop from screaming, words escape me, as I try to speak. Tears fall, why am I crying, out the world that afraid of dying, to never leave, and never in the end.
And then at the end there, he goes to that vibrato. So we've been mostly straight tone leading up into here, and here we hit that vibrato, and I'm gonna let it run in just a moment. But you can hear the space that starts to creep in as he's changed from sharp and metallic, his placement's very far forward, to releasing into that vibrato. It is a little bit of a wide vibrato as well. I would say the speed of it is it's not a super fast vibrato, is kind of what I'm getting at. So you can really hear the space as he goes to this vibrato.
Mounting terror, the threat in the end and some so many days of it that I'm dreaming, not easy to stop from screaming, words escape me, as I try to speak. Tears fall, why am I crying, out the world that afraid of dying, to never leave, and never in the end.
His changes from that really bright forward sound into that vibrato, that the depth you get from his sound when he makes that change. Larynx starts to drop a little bit, pharynx widens, vibrato kicks in. It's a really beautiful color change and it's highly expressive. I was going to pause before and mention earlier that I really love it when the instrumentation has variations on the rhythm and musical ideas that they actually put into the structure itself. There are some times with modern writing in particular, um, there are certain genres of music where uh, I feel like not enough variation is paid attention to within the expressiveness of the instrumentation that's actually contributing to the song as well. And here was a great example of where you can have other parts of your band carrying really like effective musical ideas. There are so many little catchy musical elements that are happening in here that are not necessarily being carried by the vocalist. And I really like listening to that because it means that everything is like compounding on itself, both the vocals and the music as it continues to build, as it's telling stories and luring you into this like musical experience. I really like that. I'm also pretty darn sure that he has jumped more than an octave between where he started in the beginning to where some of his higher notes are in these verse. I'm not sure what the verse chorus structure is for this song. It's my first time listening to it. But some of the higher notes in the higher energy part of the song, I'm pretty certain he's gone well over an octave, and it sounds like he's getting pretty darn high, like high fourth, maybe early entry fifth octave type of stuff. And if you have watched some of my other reaction videos, I think I mentioned this in my Queensryche reaction to Jeff Tate. Once you are up in that like high fourth, early fifth, acoustically, that's a pretty intense part of the range to be. Of course, it can really depend on the vocalists themselves, but typically you're going to expect that sound to be more intense. And as a vocalist, he's also having to put a lot of energy into that sound to keep it where it is. In the beginning, it sounded like some of his rhythms were running into each other, but as we've progressed, you can hear how he's shaping his phrasing seems to almost be like he's throwing these words out, and the aim is to land into what's happening in the instrumentation from those phrases. I haven't listened to the original, and I might actually do that. I think I'll listen to the original recording after this, and Caption Julia can speak to what happens in the original recording. But that sounds to me like what some of his phrase intention is. It's almost like he's throwing these words out and they land into what's happening in the instrumentation. Anyways, it sounds like he's up pretty high and he is in a belt. It's a very metallic, mixy kind of belt and very, very different setup wise, as I explained earlier, to what's happening in that intro. Laryngally, placement wise, just two very different sounds. Now, I'm not quite sure how old Bruce is here, but if you would like me to speak to some of the things that can happen vocally as you start to get older, I'm more than happy to include that in another reaction. So please leave that in the comments below. Let me know if you want to know about that, because I'm more than happy to continue to explore music, particularly by bands that have had such an expansive career. So you can kind of follow the vocal development journey of their lead singers over time. Like that's a really interesting perspective to look at, as just how has the voice developed, how have their techniques developed. Usually as we age, the voice gets stronger and more stable, but we do hit a point as we continue aging where things start to almost go in reverse. Now, luckily, this doesn't happen too soon. In fact, you'll probably get most of your 30s and 40s and 50s with a really strong, well-rounded instrument if you've been looking after it. But anyways, let's keep going because I want to see what else he does. What a fantastic crowd engagement. Oh my goodness. The only reason I've been bringing that up is because it was almost magical how connected everything felt when he was like controlling the crowd, getting them to scream. That really stood out for me. I mean, on top of the fact that there are these like really cute little rhythmic things that keep happening. I mean, the copyright gods say that I probably should have paused at least 4 times in that, but the sensible music part of my brain was like, "Don't you dare." So even though there was so much going on in that last section, whether it be the guitars doing their solos, the drum going nuts, like the fire at the end there, Bruce's excellent re-entry, high energy open valve sound, like that was it just it just felt like it continued to build. So when it finally paired back, it was like you finally got a moment to breathe, but what you were breathing in was like it almost felt cathartic, like you're just sitting in this brief lull in the sound after a very full musical texture. But I also wanted to mention that some of those rhythmic patterns really, really catchy. There's a lot of things that make fantastic riffs that are coming out within this song. I can totally see someone being really inspired by this kind of music to want to pick up a guitar and just go for it because I mean the energy is right, it is there, it is real. I think that's fantastic, and the solo actually contributes to the build of the piece. Instead of slowing things down. And speaking of patterns, there was a really cute little rhythm that was being done on. I think it was on the cymbal on the kit. I thought that was. I don't know why it just stood out to me in the texture. It was. I'd have to go back and re-listen to it to clap it for you, but it was. It was almost cute in how it like just pinged out of the texture in amongst all of this stuff that was happening with the rest of the kit, but also with the guitars. It just like ting ting ting. It just it just stood out to me. Anyway, so let's talk vocals. So when Bruce did finally re-enter at the end there, he was using almost like an in-between of the two vocal approaches that he'd used in the beginning with the slightly more open vowel and then also with that high metallic, like high energy sound. It becomes more like a metallic belt that he's constantly sitting on there because he has to keep that energy there the entire time. This was high energy, but it had a little bit of a wider belt to it. And I think it was because he had to enter on a vowel. So I'm just going to go back. Yeah, so it sounds like he's working with a lot more vowel there while still maintaining that metallic quality, and that's gonna come from the sheer amount of twang that he's putting into his sound. So if I was to make an obnoxiously twangy sound, I'll just move the mic back a little bit. If I was to go, "Hey!" You can hear there's like this almost like it's not a very pleasant tonal quality by itself, if I'm honest. Like when you do the extreme version of a twang exercise, it's often not a very nice sound, and yet you can use it in your belting to translate into something that sounds powerful and metallic and like you can't escape from it. There's almost like a sharpness to the tonal quality, and it really does, in combination with other things like you've got the width of the pharynx and other things that are creeping on into the sound. It really does give that belt the benefit of more perceived volume, but also more perceived energy. It's not just the volume, it's how much energy does it feel like there is actually within this sound. So I think that was just a great example of where you can use twang in combination with other things that are happening within his pharynx. So, and then further on, he returns to some of the vibrato things that we spoke about earlier. And I suppose there's another little tangent on the tone that Bruce has. I was almost expecting in the beginning for there to be something gritty involved vocally. I don't know what gave me that impression. Maybe it's because of the other styles of music that I've been listening to a lot recently. But if I'm thinking about the tones that I heard in the beginning all the way to the end, I don't actually recall him using any kind of grit or distortion in his sound. It was fairly clean and fairly well balanced. I mean, a well balanced sound means that full fold contact and very even vibration. There's nothing getting in the way there, and there's nothing above the vocal folds that are interrupting those sound waves and adding any distortion or grit to the tone. And if I'm just speaking from a vocal health perspective, um, typically in like more traditional lines of vocal pedagogy, having a very well balanced sound are the ones that we tend to associate with having greater longevity. I mean, you can definitely still give yourself a vocal injury from overdoing it, as in, even if your vocal technique is perfect, you can still hit a point where your voice is too tired to function perfectly, and then you can start to do some damage. But typically in traditional lines of pedagogy, we want that clean, even balanced sound. And we tend to associate that with the kind of vocal decision that's going to have greater longevity. Now, with that being said, that does not mean that grit and distortion and other kinds of extended singing techniques can't be done in a healthy manner and won't have longevity. That just means that if we like strip it back down to what kind of sound is going to be the most efficient for the longest period of time, not over the career, but just as in prolonged use within one session, that clean, even balanced sound tends to be what we pair back to. Whereas some of our extended singing techniques, the duration that you can use them in like one sitting, the efficiency might not be for quite as long. Anyways, I really enjoyed this. This was fun. I mean, if this is an example of their music, I can understand why people connect with it and why it's been popular, because there are certainly catchy elements of it, but also the storytelling that's there is really easy to engage with. And if they've got this kind of crowd interaction and the energy is anything like what is in this video, I can imagine going to their concerts is just absolutely wild. That is where I'm going to leave that one today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you did like this video, please be sure to give it a like, click the subscribe button and the bell notification beside it for more just like this one. As usual, I hope you're staying safe. I hope you are staying healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye! Feels like an A, an A3.